I'm Nancy Basi from the Vancouver Economic Commission. I'll be moderating the panel today. So I just want to do a quick intro of who's on the panel so you have an idea. First, Daniel Japiassu is the CEO of YDX Innovations. Daniel is an accomplished entrepreneur with over 20 years' experience leading innovative technology companies. He's an award-winning producer of digital content, immersive storytelling, and evangelist for the virtual and augmented reality. Daniel's led YDX to become a publicly listed entertainment technology offering in Vancouver. Joannah Apelo is a healthcare director for VR Vision. Joannah is a dedicated nurse and technology expert with over 10 years providing client care and technology consulting, both in Canada and internationally. She's driven to transform the way clients' healthcare is viewed and approached, and as an expert in both VR and nursing, her goal is to improve the quality of life for all using VRAR technology. And Peter Wittig here is co-founder and senior developer of Motive.io. Peter has worked in the technology industry for 20 years and has applied his software and database skills in games, healthcare, telecom, simulated software, XR, and more. Motive provides VR and AR solutions for enterprise and training. And Dan Burgar is the president of Vancouver VRAR Association. He's led the growth for the VRAR ecosystem in Vancouver. He promotes technology adoption, incubation of early-stage companies, scaling up of VRAR companies in Vancouver, facilitates international trade, which is why we're here, and attracts foreign investment into the city. Also, community building is one of the main pillars of the VRAR Association as well. So please welcome everybody. So before we start, I just thought you guys can each briefly mention what your companies do, just so we have an idea of kind of the landscape of where we're coming from, if you don't mind.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. So I'm Joannah Apelo, Healthcare Director of VR Vision Inc., recently promoted as SVP of Operations. I'm also the CEO of Reality Well. It's a subgroup of VR Vision Inc. So basically what we do for VR Vision, we're a Toronto-based company. We're a full turnkey immersive technology. Basically, we create software development, hardware to promote all our development applications. Our most focus in our company right now is immersive training, product showcase, and marketing. We're partnered with hardware companies such as Oculus, and we're developing all our applications using Oculus Quest. With the other side of the company that I manage, Reality Well is a software and hardware as a service. We use Oculus Quest as well as our hardware. It's a subscription base. Basically, it's a Netflix for seniors.
Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Wittig from Motive.io. Motive.io provides XR training solutions for enterprise. And why are we different? So what we can do is take a Unity scene, and you can deploy that on whatever device you like, so HoloLens, an Oculus Quest, a Go, and then we can connect that to a drag-and-drop web editor. So what that allows you to do is these large companies will have learning designers, chief learning officers, and these are the people who understand what these processes and procedures should be and are in charge of tracking the learning outcomes of their employees. We give them a tool that is very familiar to the normal training tools they have on the web, but that lets them influence either a VR or an MR scene. So you can give the control over the content to those groups and the people who are knowledgeable of what those should be.
And I'm Dan Burgar. I'm the president of the Vancouver VRAR Association. So essentially what we do is we help scale companies like Peter's here to be able to take that next step in either finding investment, finding partnerships, and being able to just get their story out. So we brought about 10 companies here today, and Vancouver currently is the second leading hub for VR and AR right now in the world. So essentially that's kind of predicated on the VFX games and film industries that have been so prevalent in Vancouver for a while, and now it's bleeding into the VR AR industry.
I'm Daniel from YDX. So YDX have several divisions, and each division uses XR in a different way. So the first one is more creating experiences for brands. We started working with AR about 12 years ago, usually projected AR, and started working with VR at the Brazilian World Cup. We created a big experience for Coke. We also use XR a lot in interactive and immersive exhibitions that we create with different teams, usually more educational. And we have also a gaming arena in VR. It's a free roam multiplayer where we create our own games, but also allow other companies from Vancouver to add their games to our platform. We sell this as a turnkey. And right now we're creating a very cool experience using Mickey Mouse, so we're very excited about it. And we're new to Vancouver, only 2 years there.
Thank you. So I do have some slides. I'm not trying to figure out how this is moving along, but hopefully we can get to them as we're speaking. Just before we dig in, I just wanted to say that one of the reasons Canada's been so successful is it's known to be very collaborative. The systems, we talk about healthy co-opetition as opposed to thinking that fighting against each other. And we also, through building an ecosystem, look at all aspects: infrastructure, education and training, government programs and policies, technology and events. And I think that we've been able to work with that system to really Google Earth, what? No, I have something really simple like 8 slides. Anyway, no worries about that. We'll worry. No. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, because Canada is unique in a lot of ways, is how Canada supports businesses. As you all know, VR and AR is in this kind of almost no man's land, where some governments look at it as creative and culture, and some look at it as technology, and some look at it as both. So I just want to talk about the companies and which ones have used some of the programs, because we do have programs for technology and creativity. And I just would get curious, like Daniel, if you've been able to use any of the programs?
Well, in a way, right? So we took a very different path. So in 2015, we were looking for different ways to leave Brazil and find a new base and grow and be more of a global company. And we got a very interesting proposition to become a listed company in the Toronto Stock Exchange. So that was very useful for us. It was a very interesting way to raise money, right, to create the products we wanted to create. We found a very full ecosystem in Vancouver. Met Dan right away, show all the ropes, and met other companies that could help us in different ways to grow our products and our services. So we haven't used directly money from the government, but being listed was something very unique for us and very helpful.
Okay, cool.
And I haven't seen that anywhere.
It's good to know. And so Peter, have you used, so there's 2 of the technology incentives. One's called SHRED, which is a Scientific Research and Experimental Development Fund, and then there's IRAP, which is Industrial Research Assistant Program. Have you used either one of those?
We have used both and a few more.
Okay.
So I'm an American. I live in Canada, and I was astounded by the different ways you could utilize these programs to get funding and to get capital to help you build things that might be risky or innovative. IRAP is a great example, because you can start small, you can get something like 20K, but then you can get up to like 100, 150 as you keep going. And what they help you do is fund projects that are, could be risky, but are for innovation. And I remember they have a wonderful program as well, where they have concierges which help you navigate these government programs. And as someone who came to the country, that was essential for me. But innovation can be defined in many ways. But surely within XR, it's pretty easy to make the case. And then SHRED is a wonderful way to, again, put in some scientific research and then claim that money back, as well as digital media tax credit is a great one. Building Canada Innovation Program was a good one, and there are several more.
You've used the Creative Content one as well, haven't you?
Creative BC was a great one too, yeah.
So what's interesting about most of these programs is they're labor-based, so what it does is it encourages job growth. So you get a portion of salary back, correct? Yeah. So it's not just handing out and working on giving money for infrastructure. It's actually creating a job and helping paying for that job.
It does help bring in, we work with talented students as well, and these programs are great to bring on that talent, so you can retain them and bring them in an easy path to your company and what you're building.
That's awesome. And Joannah, have you used any of the programs?
Yes, actually what Peter mentioned about getting students, we take advantage of NSERC programs as well. We're partnered with University of Waterloo.
And what does NSERC stand for?
NSERC, National Science and Engineering funding.
Okay.
So we're taking advantage of that to validate our applications that we're using for Reality Well for our senior Netflix hardware services program. And we also taking advantage of, like Peter mentioned, the Digital Media Fund, specifically for Ontario. We use it for our XR games, and same as Shred. So we do a lot of research and development for our 360 stereoscopic program that we use for immersive training. So Shred is really a good product for that. Yes.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Another program, I'm not sure anyone's used our immigration program. So we have Fast Track program for tech talent, which can get them into the country and working within 2 weeks. So that was something that we lobbied the government for because, you know, trying to bring somebody in for 6 months, that your window of opportunity could have been lost as well. And there's also the provincial nominee program for those who are looking at starting up in Canada. Each province has a program that can fast track you if you want to open a business and become a permanent resident as well. So trying to bring the talent in and retain it has been really important. So Dan, for the ecosystem part, I know that you kind of hit the ground running to try and build up the ecosystem now. Now that we have most of it established, do you see any gaps or any momentum that we need to build on?
Yeah, I think there are a few gaps. One is early stage funding. It just does not exist in Canada. So we're taking a lot of our companies to be able to hit shows like this so that they can access different VCs from all over the world, especially in the US. And another gap is overall government funding to the ecosystem as a whole. So that's what Alex Chang and I are really pushing is to really focus on, bringing, larger investments into the whole ecosystem in terms of, helping these startups be able to scale and grow their companies. And
so sometimes the government programs can work as you're starting out, but
yeah.
when you're accelerating, there's a bit of a gap.
There's a lot of great, smaller programs. For instance, this program where we brought 10 companies from Canada was through the GOA program, but unfortunately they don't cover, operational funding, or they don't cover, kind of like larger amounts of funding that the industry needs right now in Canada.
Okay. So Joannah, I'm interested in what you're doing because you've combined AR and VR in healthcare.
Yes.
I have a question. Like, how do you sell that to a business or a hospital or that doesn't really know what you're talking about? Like, how do you begin selling them on the idea?
Yeah. So specifically VR. So we use Oculus Quest. So what I mentioned a while ago, the shortest description of it is Netflix for seniors, because we have basically three main products, which is Explore. It's a CG 3D environment, which you could explore different environments and teleport around. And you could even see different kinds of like avatars of different seniors while playing around with it. And the second one, we call it Expedition. We use our 360 stereoscopic camera to film all around the world. So seniors can travel even though they're stuck in a wheelchair or in their bed or in their retirement home. And our last is Excite, which the name itself, Excite, gives you excitement because it's extra games made specifically for seniors, which is validated with our partners such as University of Waterloo. So balancing rocks, music, game, even activities of daily living that we forget because they don't do these things anymore, like cooking, cleaning the house, specific like sports like tennis, or even fishing. So at least with this, what we do for healthcare, for Reality Well, we bring those memories back to them and increases their cognitive ability, their upper body strength, their critical thinking. And it's going to be subscription-based, so they always have monthly, quarterly updates. And it just gives me so much joy, just the reaction and the smile of their face that they can finally do their daily activities and they can at least lift their finger or their hand again. And that reaction brings so much joy for me.
I love the idea of them feeling like they've gone on vacation too.
Yes, yes.
like I'm living a little bit. Now everything isn't all rosy in Canada, so I just want to go chat a little bit about some of the fails or pivots that some of our companies have had to gone through, because I think it's important to know that sometimes you go down a path and it isn't what you expected. But Peter, you have a couple of stories about that, don't you?
Sure. So has anyone changed what they were doing from when they originally started? Dan? Okay. Me too. So we started, we're a game company. We were making location AR games, pre-Pokemon Go, and our creative director's from film. And what we found is a workflow problem where either we were waiting on him for content or he was waiting on us for dev work. And so we needed a way to allow him to work in parallel with us, the devs. So we created this web-based authoring tool to create kind of branching narratives and branching scenarios that he could iterate on while we worked on the Unity projects. Now, we found that that tool in itself was more valuable than the game we were making, so we put a lot of effort into that. But we quickly found that people weren't so interested, or there's a lot of people interested, but not a lot of money behind the location AR, especially at that time. But because we built it for AR, which requires you to adapt and have many different branches, it facilitates branching and scenarios really well. And so we found our way into, since it's a Unity scene, VR hooks in just as well as AR, and then thinking, well, what's good for scenarios? And we found training had a lot of scenarios, and so we finally are now putting this brand new kind of learner interface on the same thing we've been using for several years, and it's a great way for us to have found a market that allows us to grow.
That's awesome. And Daniel, you've done some pivoting.
A lot. Yeah, quite a bit.
You're pirouetting.
Yeah, still doing it. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges we had is we designed a product and we had anticipated that we would operate all these VR gaming facilities, right, and invest in locations. And then quickly we understood that there was no way we would be able to create the platform, the games, open facilities, operate them, and expand. So we had to definitely choose and limited that, and then we changed the product to be a more turnkey solution where we're selling to third parties. And of course that leads to finding distributors and other challenges that, again, being in Canada was very helpful. And now we're going through a bit of a situation because we did raise significant amount of money through the stock exchange, but that creates dilution. And what I didn't know, because I'm new to this, is that the dilution can also help bring your stock down, right? So now I'm having to deal, even though we are somewhat a startup, a little bit bigger, but we have to deal with the stock price and how that is affecting our ability to raise more money. And now we are undervalued, so that open other doors that we have to have a better understanding. I think one of the great things about being in Canada for us is that not only there's a plenty of people helping us find solutions, either to stay listed and find new investors, consolidate or delist through VCs. There's a lot of options out there. And also now that we need more governmental help, there's a very interesting figure. It's like a concierge, because finding out what is SHRED, what is IRAP is very hard when you're new. And this guy knows all of the programs. So basically, you sit in front of him, he's from the government, he'll tell you all of the options you have, and that's fantastic. So it's been a work in progress, and I think that's what it is with every startup. As long as there are solutions and options, I think you can keep going, right, and keep growing.
Now, knowing what you know now, would you become a publicly traded company, or?
Oof. I am here because I did that.
It's unusual for an entertainment company to be publicly traded, but we're seeing in Canada, we're seeing that more as people are shifting from mining and oil and gas. They are looking for other places to
Yeah. So we got in as a tech company before the big blockchain and cannabis wave. And that disrupted the stock exchange industry in Canada a little, because then you have a lot of new companies that are related to blockchain and not necessarily did well. So right now, I think the whole market is trying to adapt to a new reality. We have a real business in a sense that is not a fund investing in other companies. But I think what we did was the right move at the time. And right now we have plenty of options to continue, and being listed it has been very useful.
Okay, that's cool. Joannah, do you have any epic fail stories? No, I'm just kidding. Just little fail stories?
I believe every company should experience that. A lot of people just see the good on social media, but because that's what we wanted to show them, right? But there's a lot, and every success of every company, I believe there's at least a little bit of failure. It depends what failure is meant for you. So for us, just the change of hardware from the Vives all the way now is standalone. We're heavily focused with Oculus Quest, just from developing from Vive and changing our hardware a couple of times. We want it to be the latest hardware technology, so our software should work hand in hand with that. So it was really tough for our developers shifting. I'm not a developer myself, I'm a nurse. So the hardships and all the trial and error my development team had to do from the beginning. It was tough, but we have to put it all together and stay on the top of our line and be always innovative in the market. So I believe that hardship, a little bit of failure with the trial and error would really push us to who we are right now as a company.
That's great. So Dan, I'd love to talk a little bit about education with you, because I know you've been working with Vancouver Film School, BCIT, stuff like that. How are you finding universities embracing the education for VR and AR? And do you feel like it's going anywhere?
In BC, it's a bit fragmented, so we see some of the top universities doing stuff, but they're not talking to each other. I find a lot of people who are working on VR and AR at these top universities have different facets of departments that are using VR, but they don't know that they're working on it. So I think our organization is trying to kind of connect the dots there. And we're working with schools like Vancouver Film School, which is one of the top-rated animation schools. So we help deploy a VR AR program, because we know that within a few years we're going to need that talent to be able to continue growing. And with Vancouver having about 250 companies, they need to scale up very quickly. So we need to get that talent in there. So we're focused on that, working with educators, but then also focused on immigration. So bringing in some of the top developers in the world to Vancouver and Canada as a whole.
That's great. And Center for Digital Media is a master's program that creates pods. So you have one person who's a software developer, one person who's a producer, one person who's interactive specialist, and putting those teams together seems to work really well. So it looks like we're running out of time. I have a minute and 24 seconds. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Anybody in the audience? Anything we weren't clear about? Oh, yeah, I see one. Yeah. Sorry, there's a very bright light on my face. Just yell it out. It's okay.
How do you see ecosystems working together in general? Because you're coming to Vancouver, how do you see working with Munich or Bavaria, or working with the EU in Brussels? How does your organizations in British Columbia and Canada overall see partnerships working?
Well, it's interesting because we have on the film side we have these co-production treaties, and what we're seeing is entities like Telefilm or the Canadian Media Fund are looking, and same with the Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit. You can work on a project and both use your incentives if you do have them. So you can kind of stack, you're mitigating risk a little bit and kind of helping stack. So I think co-producing projects would be the best way to do that. And then each can like I said, you're mitigating your risk, but you're also getting some help from government. Is that something?
And it's also going to shows like this, doing conferences all over the world and building those partnerships. And Last night we went to your dinner, for example, and we brought together some of the leaders within VR and AR, but then also banding together people who might be interested in using VR and AR and integrating it and kind of becoming leaders themselves. So I find those events very valuable in kind of bringing different ecosystems together. And we actually have a conference coming up November 1st to the 2nd. In Vancouver, the VRAR Global Summit, and we're really trying to bring the world together and really showcase, this technology isn't just going to work by ourselves. It's going to need the whole world working in tandem together. So.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. And we're around. We have the Canada booth in the Expo Hall. So if anybody needs to talk to any of us, just please come and say hi.